80 years ago, the Russian Red Army was moving through Poland, and they came across what looked like a prison camp. They found 7,000 people in prison there. The place was called Auschwitz, and the prisoners that were there had not committed any crimes. They were imprisoned because they were Jewish. You see, the Nazis were a wicked political movement who took over Germany. They had an irrational hatred of Jewish people. They blamed them for all the things they saw as wrong in their society. And people discovered that the Nazis had been taking people who were Jewish away from their friends and family, out of their homes, and put into these prison camps. They were given hardly anything to eat, so they were always hungry. They were stuffed into overcrowded accommodation, and they were made to do horrible, back-breaking work. And if that wasn't terrible enough, we discovered that Jewish people were forced to go and have a shower in what looked like a changing room. And instead of water coming out, a gas would come out, and people would die in that shower room. And so many people were killed in that way. It's one of the worst crimes in human history. 6 million Jewish people were killed for no other reason than they were Jewish. Now we know that nobody should be bullied or persecuted or hurt because of the color of their skin, because of where they're from, where their family's from, what religion they follow. And so when we hear about what happened in the Holocaust, we want to learn from those dark moments in our history and say never again. And so that's why I'm here in Hyde Park. And there's this huge memorial rock that's been brought all the way from Jerusalem to here. And on this rock, there is a quote: "For these I weep, streams of tears flow from my eyes because of the destruction of my people." And that's a quote from the Bible, from the book of Lamentations. A lament is a song that you sing when you're grieving or sad or worried. And this book was grieving for another difficult time in Israel's history, when people were taken from their homes and taken to another country and had to face terrible circumstances there, and the cities were destroyed. And there in the Bible, people are reminded that God grieves for some of the terrible things that are going on in our world, and it's okay for us to grieve about them. And there's some really important lessons that we can learn from those terrible times back then. During that time in the Second World War, there were people in Britain that thought they wanted to help the Jewish people. And there was an incredible man called Nicholas Winton who organized trains to come from places like Czechoslovakia, where lots of Jewish people were hiding from the Nazis. And the children were brought here, and they were given homes and families that would look after them and care for them, a little bit like we've done recently for Ukraine. And about 10,000 Jewish people came here as part of something that was known as the Kinder Transport. Kinder means child, so the child transport. And even today, there are thousands of people alive today because of the generosity of the British people. I met someone who survived the Holocaust. He was one of my neighbours, and John was just a little boy. He was living in Czechoslovakia at the time when his parents told him that he needed to go to the train station. He thought his parents might be coming with him, but instead it was just him and his brother that got on the train, and they would take him to London, to the United Kingdom. Sadly, their parents were some of those victims that died in the Holocaust. John made it his ambition to talk about the kindness and hospitality that he experienced here from the family that ended up looking after him and adopting him. Now, one of the families that received these children was the family of someone called Michael Bond. And when Michael Bond grew up, he became an author, and he wrote stories for his children to help them go to sleep at night time. And one of the stories was about a little brown bear that was found at a London train station. His name is Paddington, just like the station that he was found. Now, Michael Bond wrote the story of Paddington to remind us of the way that people in Great Britain showed kindness and hospitality to children who were Jewish, who needed to flee from the Nazis. That's a really important lesson, isn't it? When there's so much hatred and cruelty, you can show kindness and compassion. And so it really makes me sad. I'm hearing from schools around the UK that many children who are from Jewish families have been facing bullying, have had horrible words said about them. Some of them have faced physical violence from other students. People are doing that because of what's going on in the Middle East. There's a conflict right now in Israel and Gaza and some of the other surrounding countries. And whatever you think about what's going on there, it's never right to punish or hurt people here for that, especially children. The children in our schools weren't responsible for what's going on in Israel and Gaza right now. And just so it gets wrong to hate someone because they're black, or hate someone because they're a girl, or hate someone because they're in a wheelchair, it's wrong to hate people because they're Jewish. That's called anti-Semitism. And so I want to ask you to show some of that Paddington spirit, that you could be kind and compassionate, particularly to people who might be facing bullying or persecution at this time. That would be a really important way that you and I can respond to this Holocaust Memorial Day. Let's make sure no one is being hated because they are Jewish, but instead everyone is being loved because we're human.